Hi, welcome back to the shed for episode 22 of Great Guitar Build Off 2023. And in this episode, we're going to continue with the work we did on the control cavity last time by making a cover plate for it and also finishing off one or two little jobs around the body. Okay, so in the last episode, we got the control cavity cut out and the recess for the cover. And first thing we're going to do this time is we're going to take this big lump of mahogany and we're going to try and fashion a cover that both fits into this cavity really nicely and is somewhat similar in grain match. Now, I accept that this is going to be quite an imprecise science. Hopefully, as this is the same piece of wood that this came from, colour-wise we'll be very close. We might not be able to get a perfect grain match, but I think if we go in this area here, we'll get something that's relatively close, something we can get away with. So I think the first thing we need to do is get this kind of trimmed down on the bandsaw. Now I've got some projects coming up where I could do with some nice pieces of mahogany that are fairly small, and I think I'd probably get at least one out of this. So the first thing I'm going to do is just trim maybe 2 inches off here, keep that piece of wood for the other project, and then get our cover out of this area here to the bandsaw. Okay, so there's that little cover plate roughly cut out. I think the bandsaw was pretty much maxed out there. It was struggling to kind of cut in that dimension, but we managed to get something like. This is clearly too thick, but what we'll do is we'll get the perimeter cut until it fits properly. We can then clean up this face, which is a little bit rough from the bandsaw, and then with that done, it's quite a simple, straightforward task of just flushing this off with the rest of the back of the body. Shouldn't be a problem at all. So next up, we'll get this onto the disc sander just to clean up to these lines. What I'm going to do, I think, is I'll clean up to this face. We'll get that fitting something like, and then I can kind of take one of these edges off till it's where it needs to be. The other one off, which will give me kind of a sliding wedge in there. And then I can just finally clean this back until it fits nicely in place. And after much toing and froing, we've actually got that fitting quite nicely now. And it's almost level, but not quite. So I'm going to whip that out of there again, and I'm going to fasten this down with a bit of super glue and masking tape and trim it down to thickness. Now I don't think I'm going to be able to get rid of kind of all of this nastiness there without, I don't know, I might just do that. I would rather have just a little bit of unevenness on the back than have it sat too far in the recess. So if we have to live with that, we have to live with it. But looking at it, we might just be able to get it down. Okay, and there's that kind of completed for the time being. There's a little bit of fine tuning maybe on some of these corners just to get the gap ever so slightly more consistent around there, but on the whole I think that's gone quite well. The colour is pretty much spot on. The grain was never going to be a perfect match, but actually looking at it, it blends in to an extent. Some of the lines, kind of the figure, kind of sort of follow each other in through here and out through there as well. So I don't know, I think that might look okay once it's done, but I think we can put that to one side now. Now doing this has highlighted one thing that I need to do, and that's put a round over on the back of here. I don't think it's going to be a very big one, but we do need one just to make it a little bit more comfortable. And also there's a bit of work to do to fit these body wings to the guitar properly and fit the central section of the guitar to the body wings. So we'll get that all back on the bench, get it all put together a little bit, and we'll see what we need to do. And the first thing we need to do is just kind of resolve both ends of this body central section. So obviously there's these two bits where it meets the neck that need kind of finishing off, and then at the heel there's kind of a step, especially where it meets the lower bout. Now this has introduced a little bit of a dilemma for me, because initially I did have the idea of kind of adding a little bit more binding in around these transitions into where it meets the neck, but obviously that would require it to have something of a vertical finish. And I just think that's going to look a little bit odd in that section there. I think I would much rather it just resolves straight into that corner. I think it'll look much neater. At the other end, it would actually be a lot easier to do. However, I just think we need it uniform one end from the other, unless it's just going to look a little bit odd. So we're not going to bother with that either, which means there's a little bit of sanding to do just to get these into the right shape, and that kind of element will be done. It should be quite a quick and easy job. Hopefully there won't be too much complication there. And I think with these it's just a matter of kind of making sure it's in the right position, marking where we want that curve to start, and then just finding something suitable on the French curves just to draw that in. It's going to be a little bit awkward because there's not a lot to rest it on, but I think that looks quite nice. So we'll just draw that in. And again on the upper wing. Something like that. And the same on this end section, except it's a lot easier because we've already got both reference points in place there. And to be fair, there's not a huge amount to come off there. So I think I'll do this end first because I can get that straight onto the disc sander. As I said, there's not a huge amount to come off, so it shouldn't really take a great deal of time. Okay, so just try and line that up as best I can. But that's that end done. I think it looks really nice. Kind of follows a nice smooth curve around there, which is great. So next we can break out the spindle sander and just get these little bits cleaned up. Okay, so there's those transitions all sorted out and I'm really happy with that. It's looking really nice. There might be just a tiny little bit of cleaning up work to do once these are glued on, but it's going to be minimal. We are very close to where we need to be. So with that done, only really leaves us one job left to do at this stage, and that's to just very quickly put a bit of a round over on the back of these body wings. And for that, we need to break out the little router. And I've set the little router up and I've remembered to put my extended base on this time. I'm going to need it because now that we've put that big route in, there's very little material on these edges, so it would be very tippy, but with this in position, it's going to be just fine. I've also got my non-slip routing mat down. Again, I haven't used this for a long time and I'd kind of forgotten how useful it is. It really does stop stuff from slipping around a great deal. And it also saves you having to clamp things down, so that means you can just route things in one pass, whereas before you'd have to stop and move the clamp and do it again. So yeah, well worth the investment if you can find one. I got this one from Axminster. I would imagine they still sell them, and if I remember rightly, it was very, very inexpensive. Okay, let's get routing. Okay, so that's the 2 halves rounded over. It's gone very well. Obviously there will be a little bit more routing to do on the central section when we get it all joined up, but I'm not going to tackle that for the time being. There might be some minor adjustments needed there, so we'll leave that. The build's been in a situation for a few weeks now where, despite the amount of work that I'm doing on it, it doesn't really seem to have progressed a huge amount visually. That's just one of the things with building guitars. You will come across that. Sometimes it will look absolutely fundamentally different after an hour's work, and sometimes you can spend weeks and it doesn't really appear that you've done a great deal. But we are inching forward with this and we are getting a lot closer to where we need to be. However, I don't think it's going to make any massive leaps forward in the next week or so. Next up, we need to be kind of dealing with what it is that's going to go into this cavity. And as we said last time, it's oversized for a reason, because there's going to be some additional stuff packed into here. But discussions about that are going to be for the next episode. I'm going to leave this one here. So as always, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.